How long does it take for someone to open up to their intuition? Today, I'm going to talk about that. Yes, the answer is not going to be absolutely specific, but I am going to talk about the components that will speed up the opening up or slow it down. And if you're new to the channel, please click that subscribe button. It helps the channel. We grow bigger and we help more people access their own personal intuition. And that means a lot to me. This session might feel a little bit like you and I are just hanging out, just chit-chatting, just shooting the breeze, because I want to talk about the speed of intuitive development. It was a thing for me. It was absolutely a thing for me. I wanted to know how fast I could get how much information and how and quickly. So there is the patience factor in here, but there are some other things that come into play as well, and they're very important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey first, just kind of update you on what happened for me, probably because it's a good platform to base things off of, because I went from completely skeptic to here I am sitting with you today. But I also want to talk about patience. I want to talk about the focus. What is the focus that is happening for you? What are you focusing on? And I also want to talk about the state of being that intuition channels through. But let's start here. It's true that everyone opens up at a different pace intuitively because we're all unique. We're all wired differently. This is a big obstacle for a lot of people that are training and diving into their own intuition, because they try to do it like other people are doing it, and then they hit wall after wall after wall, and it doesn't work for them. It's like, well, this isn't working for me. It's probably not working for you because you're trying to do it like someone else. That's why my teaching style with the SAGE method is all about, here is a series of things to go through to identify blocks, to release blocks, and also here is a series of tools to try on to see which ones work for you and which ones don't. Now, this all stemmed from my journey. When I was 32 years old, I was a complete skeptic. Complete skeptic. I have a degree in mathematics from college. 1 plus 1 absolutely has to equal 2. I might have some completion issues. Things have to be, in a little box, and they have to make sense in order for me to get on board with them. And for me, it was this process of how can I get from A to B, A to B, A to B? That was my entire life. And it's not that it was bad in any way, shape, or form, but I just wasn't open to anything free-flowing or, in the vibe or in the moment. I didn't have a spiritual path or a religious path. None of that was included in my life. Now, 32 years old, I'm in New Hampshire, New England, United States, and my grandmother is halfway across the country in Minnesota, and I couldn't get to her when she was passing. I was able to visit her beforehand, but the actual moment of her death, I wasn't able to be there. I was in my apartment, too far away from her, and it was a really, really difficult moment. And she passed. I hung up the phone. My family went to the grocery store. It was the middle of the day. I was standing in my apartment, and she showed up right in front of me, 10 feet in front of me. It was undeniable. She was there. She was 70% solid. She looked at me. She winked. She smiled, and then she left. So it wasn't even like out of the corner of my eye. It was pop right in front of me. It happened, and then pop, it was gone. So let's be real about this. It was a little frightening. I was frightened. I was a little scared. And I remember kind of stepping back and I stepped back, and I remember holding onto the wall and going, okay, I'm losing my mind. That was my first thought. This is a hallucination. This is out of feeling bad. I'm losing my mind. This is grief. This is just grief. It's showing itself this way. And I let it go. I can't believe I let it go, but I did. I had this all scientifically written off. Oh, it can't be this. It's this. It's this. I let it go, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and my husband at the time said, I had a dream about your grandmother. It was really real. And this is what she was wearing. And I was shook because what he described her wearing was what I saw her in the day before. So I let my grief take me down a road where I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a little bit of time to see if this is real. And I said a couple months, and that's it. But I need proof. So I'm like talking to thin air. Grandma, if you're there, I need proof. If this is going to be real, I need to know this is real. I need actual proof. And a couple months went by, and that's what I got. Proof. Not right away though. And this is where I want to get into talking about the speed of opening up. For most people, it is not like a light switch. You don't make the decision that you're going to, and it just opens up. And I know that it's common for us to see people that are out in the intuitive world representing and being mediums and doing readings and demonstrations and such, and think, oh wow, when they opened up, or they've either always been open like this because they have a gift, or when they opened up, it just happened. And okay, it's fair. I do know that there are some people out there that have some stories like that. I tend to trust my own experience, and I think you should trust your own experience as well, because that's the only experience you're going to know to be purely true. So I wasn't listening to any of those other experiences. I was like, I have to do this just directly with me, no outside influence. I have to figure out what I'm doing. And it took me probably a good year to really be able to get messages on the regular, where I could sit down on demand, get an intuitive message, and tapped in. A year. Let me say that again. It took me a year. So take the idea of gifted, throw that out the window immediately, please. Intuition is not a gift. It is an ability that we all have, but it is an ability that we all block in some way, shape, or form. Some people's intuition is heavily blocked, like mine was. Mine was absolutely blocked. And then other people's, it's a little bit blocked. It comes and goes, and it happens here and there. And then there are other people that they've got it wide open, no more blocks, and they're moving through. So the speed of intuition is really based on how much it's blocked and the steps you take to unblock it. So here I am, 32 years old, complete skeptic. My grandmother shows up almost completely solid in front of me in the middle of the afternoon, middle of my living room. What do I do with that? Okay, I figure out if it's real or not. Fast forward, couple months in, I would say, not right away, I started working on yes and no intuition. I started working with the pendulum. I started to just sort of try to meditate. I was trying to do anything I could. But I realized the faster I wanted to go and the harder I wanted to push my intuition to open up, the more I was running into brick walls. Now, a couple months in, I started to see her again for the first time. So it wasn't like that episode turned it on and it was perfect. It was me putting effort into doing inner work, sitting, getting quiet, going inside and saying, okay, I'm going to have just this sort of peaceful internal moment. I had to do that for a little while. And then eventually I started to get feedback, yes and no's. And then I started to be able to ask more questions. And then, okay, I'll be honest, I was a little tired. I'm an impatient person, and I was very tired. And I was like, you know what? How long is this going to take? Because so far up to this point, I didn't really have any messages that came through in those first few months that made me feel like, oh yeah, this is totally real, completely real. I was wired to be skeptic. There's nothing wrong with being skeptic. Just a little side note right there. Everyone walks their path, and that is their path to walk, and that is where they're supposed to be. So I have deep respect for skeptics, because I was one, I get it. And I might have been my entire life, and that would have been okay too. But I had the signs and I had the messages to open up to my intuition. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you probably do too. And you're like, yeah, okay, so get to the meat of it, Bo. All right, here we go. There are things that I discovered along the way that speed up intuitive development, and also things that hinder it. Now, I met my grandmother, as we know now. And the whole story is laid out in my book, Cracking Open Adventures of a Reluctant Medium. But so if you've read it, I know this is a repeat, but shortly after that, I'd say about 6 months or so after meeting my grandmother in spirit form, I did meet my first spiritual guide. And I worked with him for about 2 years. 2 years learning about the in-between, spirituality, talisman, energy, how energy moves, how intuition moves through the body, how it accesses the five senses, how it triggers messages to come through, how the left brain reacts to the right brain. I could go on. So I worked with him for about 2 years, and then at the end of it, I realized he had me doing a lot of different things also in my life for inner work and balancing, and my life was improving dramatically. Not only was my life improving dramatically, my intuition was opening up massively. So I became a professional medium, went out in the world, and that was when that guide said to me, I need you to take everything I taught you, I need you to put it together, and I need you to bring it out into the world. And I said, well, that sounds like a class or a course. This was back in 2008. And he goes, okay. And I was like, all right. So I took everything he taught me, condensed it down. The shortest I could get it was 7 weeks. And that was the birth of the Sage Method. And in there, you're going to find a lot of these tools that I'm going to talk about now, which is what speeds it up, what slows it down. I'm going to throw out a bunch of things off the top of my head because I've been teaching for so long now that I want to throw out some of the most powerful ones. Observational perspective speeds up intuition. That's what I talked about with focus. What's my focus? Your focus will either speed it up or slow it down. And observational perspective, having a bigger focus, having a bigger picture will increase the speed and the accuracy and the amount of intuitive messages that come through. Having a limited perspective, having just sort of that pinpoint blinders on brick wall, that's going to slow your intuition down. Now, let me interject here for a moment. We all have that. It's part of being human. That's another part of my teaching method. There is no judgment from A to Z, no judgment whatsoever, because guess what slows down intuition? Judgment. So judgment comes from the left brain, which is logical, analytical. The right brain is intuitive and creative. So intuition flows through the right brain, left brain shuts down the intuitive messages in the right brain. So judgment is analytical. Judgment is picking something apart and thinking through it. Judgment shuts down intuition. So that's another thing. When you're in this sort of pinhole focus, you're too close to something, you can't see the answer. You know, the reasons we go get readings. I'm too close to this. I can't see it. Can you tell me? So, what does the reader bring you? That observational perspective, that bigger perspective. And when we take that step back and we look at things from that point of view, the universe, guides, source, your loved ones say, oh, okay, now that they have this bigger point of view, we can show them this and this and this and this. But when you're in a state where you are focused in only on one thing, and that's got to be the answer. That's got to be where it is. It's hard for our sources on the other side to point us in the direction of the actual thing that we need to look at and focus on in order to move forward the way that we want to move forward. So when I brought up in the beginning, what's your focus? You know, what are you focused on? Focus on the big picture. Focus on being, you know, I want you to stay in the driver's seat, but I want you to focus on being a little bit in the passenger seat with your guides and your spiritual team and saying things like, what do you want me to know? Instead of, I want to know this, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to change your perspective. If you're in an argument or a fight or a disagreement, sit down and really go deep with yourself. What role am I playing in this? That's going to get your perspective bigger. That's where you're going to start to go, oh, I didn't think about this, but maybe the other person might be feeling this way, right? Compassion, bigger perspective, looking at more possibilities. So as soon as we can take that focused in lens that's focused in so tight on something, and we can pan out and we can look at that bigger picture, your intuition is going to start to flow faster because you have the ability now to receive more messages. The other thing, patience. I mentioned we were going to talk about patience. Uh, Patience and faith are kind of the topic together here. What you think about, you bring about. And that's kind of this topic when it comes to patience versus faith. And when I say faith, I mean faith in yourself. Faith in that it is real. Trust in yourself, that this is a part of you. And I teach this in the SAGE method and a lot of the other courses that I teach as well. Just give yourself little windows of time, because a negativity, which we all have from time to time, judgment, self-judgment, impatience, these are all natural things, especially in today's world. These are tools that we use to survive and to get by. And it's very, very difficult to be using these tools on a regular basis and then just have an instructor, a spiritual teacher, go stop using those tools, and you go, okay, and then you never do again. No, I'm a little bit of a realist. So it's not about saying, oh, flip that around. Don't ever be negative again. Don't ever be, judgmental again, and don't ever be impatient. What I ask my students to do is be patient for a short amount of time. Be positive for a short amount of time. Be in a state of belief of yourself, of total faith in your own abilities for a limited bit of time. Give your body and your system time to feel what that feels like. That is going to open up your intuition faster. That's going to speed things up for you. That's going to give your intuitive channel time to breathe, because it's been trying to fight through your doubt, fight through your, your nervousness. Am I good enough? Can I do this? It's been trying to fight through that. And you need to give it little glimpses of moments where it can breathe. So if you can do this, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, set the timer on your phone. And for that short period of time, have full belief, complete faith. My intuition is strong. I can communicate with my guides. I can communicate with loved ones. Accessing my intuition is easy. Just keep repeating those things over and over, and settle in. Take a couple deep breaths and say, are there any intuitive messages that want to come through? And then stay open to any way that an intuitive message comes through. Once that timer goes off, you can go back to doubting yourself. You can go back to doubting. You can look down on the piece of paper where you wrote the message that came through, and you can go, well, sure, go ahead, do that. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, sure, go ahead, do that. Let yourself have that moment. And then when you're ready to sit down again, set that timer again, 2 to 3 more minutes. Do it again, 2 to 3 more minutes. You can hold yourself in a space of total trust of yourself, total faith in your abilities. For that short period of time, your intuitive channel will relax, it will open, people will be able to access you more. And when I say people, I mean guides and loved ones. And you'll start to feel what it feels like for your intuition to be flowing through your system. You're going to get little tidbits of that. This is why I do something called Sacred Space. And I've been doing it since I think 2010 is when I remember doing it. In the beginning, maybe 2011, doesn't matter. It's been a long time. I do it every full moon, every new moon. I do it as a group with the Sage Circle community. And we go into sacred space energy for 20 minutes. And participants, all they have to do is relax. My job is to bring in sacred space energy, raise your vibration, and hold it in that high vibrational state for a period of time for this 20 minutes. When your vibration is high and held in a high state for 20 minutes, you have easier access to guides, to loved ones, to source, thus easier access to receiving messages. So what I'm talking about is kind of the same thing. At home, 2 to 3 minutes on your own. Just set your timer and be in that space of high vibration, high belief, just high faith and trust in yourself. Now, lastly, here's the last tip I'm going to give for this session. What are you doing when you're trying to tap in, right? Is it a frustrated exam that you're taking from high school? Or is it something, girls' night out and you're just having some fun, and who knows, let's see what happens. What could happen, right? So obviously, one of those states of being is going to block intuition, right? That state of being, that sitting at the desk, tapping your fingernail on the desk, going, come on, give me something. That state of being blocks, obviously. but sometimes it's just a nice friendly reminder, right? That other state of being in this space of like, oh, this is fun. I wonder what's going to happen next. Okay, stay curious. That state of curiosity. And if something happens, it does. If it doesn't, it's okay, but I'm giving it a try. Isn't this exciting that I'm trying? We're letting go of achievement. We're letting go of end results. We're letting go of getting to point B. We're starting at A and we're having a good old time. Okay, I'm saying all this out loud, but now I'm going to wrap all the way back up to my story from the beginning. This was my biggest hurdle. So I just want to leave you with a little reminder that everyone's intuition opens at a different pace. Inner work is important. Giving yourself patience is important. Having fun is important. Allowing yourself to take a bigger observational point of view is very important with your intuition. And there are a whole bunch of other tools and techniques and words of wisdom and inner work that you can do as well if you really want to dive deep into this. But even if you just take what we talked about just in this session and sit down in those little moments, 2 to 3 minutes a piece, you're going to have something happen. One of your 5 senses is going to be ignited by your intuition and something will come through. Write it down, keep it there, give yourself those moments of trust and faith in yourself. And next thing you know, you're going to start getting intuitive messages on the regular. After listening to this session, if you said, hey, yeah, Bo, but I'm a little scared of some things too, I'm going to send you over to this video. Watch this one. Amazing, amazing tools in here that have to do with facing fear, letting go of fear, and opening up your intuitive channel.